Stars of the night shows the 2,600 sports men and women of the Commonwealth.
The opening ceremony of the 14th Commonwealth Games. The Song of Welcome, composed by Wellington's Don McGlashan, begins the opening ceremony of Auckland's Commonwealth Games 1990.
Winning the world over.
Welcome, but of course, as we wait in the stadium, The Queen's baton relay comes closer, being carried by Ray Puckett here, 1964 Olympic Games competitor in the marathon. And famous athletes will be helping in the relay run right through to the stadium.
At the moment, the baton, in fact, is in Ellerslie Racecourse. Beautiful racecourse just 3 or 4 kilometres away from Mount Smart Stadium.
A fanfare now is about to sound, marking the raising of Prince Edward's personal standard as the royal party is about to arrive and the formal Maori welcome will begin. Prince Edward's personal standard has an E on it with the rose. It's a variation of the Queen's own standard. And with us for this part of the ceremony, on behalf of the tangata whenua, is Tainui Stevens.
Kei ngā iwi no ngā tai e whā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Haramai ki tēnei hui, nui whakaharahara. The conch sounds that the visitors are in sight. And it's a signal for the haka pōhuri to begin.
The royal car is now arriving and Prince Edward is being welcomed by a group of dignitaries.
It's a wonderful...
Sir David Beattie is with him. He's president of the New Zealand Olympic and Commonwealth Games Committee.
And Dr. Peter Sharples leads the haka tutu ngā rahu. Wonderful occasion and one that is exciting for all those present. Mount Smart Stadium has, for the purposes of this magnificent occasion, been turned into a marae. Quite rightfully so, because this is the tribal area, the Ngāti Whātua people.
Amongst the escort for Prince Edward will be a rangatira escort from the tangata whenua, Sir Hugh Kawharu, and also Hinamua Ruby Gray.
And the haka group, the local people, quite rightfully, as the tangata whenua, or the people of the land, pay their respects by showing their defiance. They show their visitor because they're not sure whether he comes in peace or with warlike intent. This is symbolism which is very important because the traditions therein are held to this day to be as important as they have ever been.
So we're saying that the people here aren't doing a performance, Tainui?
They're not doing a performance, Angela. The welcome, the challenge are acts of defiance because it's taken very, very seriously. No matter what occasion, the challenge is particularly serious, and if there's any breach in protocol, or if anything goes wrong, or if there's any dishonor laid upon the challenge in any way, the iwi or the tangata whenua, the people, will react. We hope, of course, that the visitors do come in peace. We know that they do, but these rituals of welcome must be carried out. And as you can see, the warriors are all in superb physical shape, particularly the ones who have been assigned to support the lead challenger.
Do the traditions of challenge vary from tribe to tribe, Tainui?
They certainly vary from tribe to tribe, Angela. Depending on what tribal area you come from, there may be 1, 2 or 3 warriors supporting you. And as we can see here, Kireti Rau Tangata is the lead kaitaki, and he places before the royal visitor a kōpere. And if this is uplifted, it signals that the visitor, in this case the royal visitor, comes in peace. Dame Whina Cooper, Doyen of the North, will be appearing later. And she is ably supported here by her whanaunga, her relations of Ngāti Whātua, led by Dr. Peter Sharples, who composed many of the items and choreographed much of the pōhuri that we see here this evening.
With this massing of so many tribes together, each with their own different dance traditions, what has it meant for Peter Sharples to do something that's going to mean the same for all of them?
What it's meant, Angela, is a lot of hard work. And for many, many months now, these 2,000 performers have been meeting at places throughout Auckland to learn the haka, to learn the songs, and to coordinate themselves. These people are drawn from over 90 cultural groups within the Auckland area, and I suspect that there's probably quite a few who have come in from outside of Auckland just to be here and to take part.
Now, when you say Peter Sharples choreographs it, we're seeing a modern version of an ancient form?
It is a modern version of an ancient form indeed. The old traditions are intact, but the way they are presented may be different from those presented hundreds of years ago.
Is this a moment of uncertainty for them?
It's a moment of uncertainty because the dart has not yet been uplifted, and they show still their defiance. Showing your defiance is important because your mana and your prestige and your ihi is at stake here. The call of the women and the gesticulations of the warrior are moments that are filled with tension. The kaitaki, or lead challenger, is always a person chosen for his particular ability, adeptness and skills at these time-honoured crafts. And Professor Sir Hugh Kāwharu has uplifted the kōpere on behalf of the royal party, on behalf of Prince Edward, and indicated that therefore they come in peace. And I must say, Angela, I would imagine that the Prince would find it particularly awesome travelling through this huge body of warriors.
It would be an uneasy moment, I should imagine, because there have been incidents, haven't there?
Well, there have been incidents indeed. If a challenge has been abused by those being challenged, there have been occasions where fights have occurred. As I say, it all indicates and points to the absolute sincerity and seriousness of these wero or taki.
There's a great variation in the costumes of the women, signifying, of course, that they come from different tribes, but also with the men's costumes.
The men's costumes vary from piu-piu to rāpaki. They have all manner of dress, and it's not just a matter of tribes, because many of these people have been drawn from different cultural clubs, and the warrior there leading the royal party wearing a form of rāpaki, I would imagine to give him facility and ease of movement. He is in top physical shape and has to be if he is to be given this honoured position as kaitaki. You can just imagine that the leading of an ariki or a manuhiri visitor of such rank necessitates care by the warriors accompanying him. And at this stage, the royal party is passed over to the Royal Guard of Honour for their care, accompanied, of course, by the karanga, the keening of the women.
Prince Edward is now being escorted by Major Dick Cairns, who is in charge of the 100 soldiers of the Guard of Honour. But as they're being led off the field, The party is still in fine voice, and a lot of tension still there, a lot of power, Tainui.
Absolutely. It's an awesome thing to be part of a haka party like this. You can feel the shivers rising up your spine. This is the ihi that we talk about, the excitement one feels when performing these time-old traditions.
And a third fanfare now. A third trumpet fanfare, the flag raising.
They're the flags of three nations. Scotland to the left, they hosted the last games. Canada to the right. They'll host the next games in 1994, but flying highest, the flag of New Zealand.
Prince Edward is here as head of the Commonwealth, and he's now being invited onto the dais, and the Guard of Honour will present a royal salute. Cairns is accompanying the Prince. A 14-gun salute from One Tree Hill, and the Prince is now about to inspect the Guard of Honour, which is the 1st Battalion of the Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment. This is their first public parade since their official welcome home by the Governor-General just a month ago, serving in Southeast Asia since 1957. An honour for a regiment that was originally sent over for the Malayan emergency and then became New Zealand's contribution to the Commonwealth Strategic Reserve based in Malaysia. They've been involved in confrontations in Indonesia, Malaysia, Borneo and South Vietnam. More recently have been based in Singapore as part of the five-power defence arrangement. And Major Dick Cairns is now taking the Prince over to inspect the Guard of Honour, accompanied by the New Zealand Army Band.
Part of the protocol, the inspection of the Guard of Honour, but next, a big moment, the arrival of the athletes. Yeah, Auckland, New Zealand, and the Queen's baton approaches closer still to the stadium.
And here at the stadium, the brief burst of the national anthem for Prince Edward. So the Guard of Honour will now leave, and the band, which will be bringing the athletes into the stadium, is assembling over the far side.
I think we should perhaps mention, Angela, that one of the very special guests here this evening is the President of the International Olympic Committee, Mr. Juan Samaranch, down there in the official box. It's a very rare occasion to have a sports administrator of that status at the Commonwealth Games, but he's made this long journey to New Zealand for this occasion tonight.
That's Mr. Peter Heatley to the right, the chairman of the Commonwealth Games Federation. Meeting members of the Commonwealth Games executive. That's Mr. Bill Garlick and Mr. Tay Wilson from the New Zealand Olympic
Mr. Earl Richardson and Tom Aldrich at the end there, two of the key men in the organising committee of the 1990 Commonwealth Games.
Here after his recent spell in hospital. And the Guard of Honour leaves the stadium. Just passing through the shadow in front of the #1 stand, but I've got to say, Brendan, Auckland's really turned it on for this opening ceremony. It is a glorious summer's evening.
Well, it's a very rare sight for Auckland to have a cloudless evening. In fact, as I look around as far as I can see, I cannot see a cloud in the sky. It's one of those very rare occasions, isn't it, Angela? We don't get days or evenings like this in Auckland very often.
Well, it hasn't been a very good summer so far, so I guess it's been saving up for tonight. We can forgive it all else up till now.
Now, shortly we're going to have the Parade of Nations. Been watching Commonwealth will know that this is a change, and I think it's a very good change because the athletes are going to come in very early on in the ceremony so that they can watch some of the other activities later in the program. So the Guard of Honour leads. Shortly the athletes from the 55 competing countries will arrive.
And an important point for the athletes is that when they march on, they will be seated. They will be seated in front of the stands, and they'll be able to watch the rest of the show instead of having to stand in the heat in the middle, tire themselves out for the big day.
And on the question of the number of competitors and countries here, it's remarkable how quickly the family of nations of the Commonwealth expands. I can remember back in 1974 when the Games were last here in New Zealand, there were less than 40 countries at Christchurch, and that was a record. I think from memory, Keith, it was 38. And here tonight we have 55. Not only is it the first time ever that more than 50 countries have assembled for this 4-yearly festival of sport, but it really represents an increase of about a third in 16 years.
Well, in the record books, there are only 12 countries. 12 countries and 633 athletes. It probably seemed like a lot then in Auckland in the Empire Games, as they were then known, back in 1950.
I don't know where we keep finding all these new countries from every 4 years, but it's remarkable how quickly the list grows.
As the empire shrinks, the Commonwealth gets bigger and bigger.
Yes, I'm almost tempted to say the colonisers did a very good job in all 4 corners of the world last century.
But the interesting thing is, of course, that we remember, Brendan, those of us who were there, that there were only 26 countries at the last Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. A very sad boycott. Took a lot of the countries out. So New Zealand, boycott-free. Touch wood here at the opening ceremony of the 1990 Games. And as you'll see very shortly, 55 countries and 2,500 athletes will come into this arena. There, the empty in the front of the arena there for the athletes to sit in and enjoy.
Your Royal
what you will also
Highness,
see.
ladies and gentlemen, led by the Central Band of the Royal New Zealand Air Force, please welcome the sportsmen and sportswomen of the Commonwealth.
Well, New Zealanders always love a big band and attendance at their sporting occasions, and they're getting two tonight. The Royal New Zealand Air Force Band are joining the New Zealand Army Band for a scintillating selection of music to go with the arrival of the teams. Some of it is very appropriate indeed, and the 55 countries will certainly enjoy and recognize some of the tunes that will be played as they pass by the official box here to be received in salute by His Royal Highness Prince Edward. A magnificent occasion, a glorious Auckland evening for the opening of the 14th Commonwealth Games. Yes, indeed, the games are here.
The last nation to host the Commonwealth Games, please welcome representatives from Scotland.
A lovely tradition, isn't it, that the host country from the previous games gets to march in first at the next games. And you saw Richard Corsie there, the flag bearer for the Scottish team coming in. He played the dramatic bowls match against Ian Dickerson. 122 competitors from Scotland competing in all sports at these games.
Well, there's no kilts on the Scottish team this time, but the women's skirts are in a fabric with a tartan pattern, which has been designed especially for these games, and it's a nice touch. They've called it the Auckland stripe. The outfit's been designed by a prominent Scottish sporting couple, David Stevenson and Alex Jamieson.
There's the Scottish team, strongest medal prospects here on this track. Liz McColgan, Yvonne Murray and Tom McKean, and very strong in bowls again this time. So the first team in, the team of Scotland.
And marching to Cock of the North, that'll get their blood going.
Australia!
And a super New Zealand welcome for our good mates from across the Tasman. And they have given New Zealand a great tribute by sending their biggest ever team. And there's their flag bearer, Lisa Curry-Kenny, the one they call Super Mum of the 1990 games. She was the golden girl in '82 in Brisbane, retired, became a mother, and is back. And here's this controversial national costume, Angela.
Yes, marching with Lisa is swimming star Janelle Elford, who's wearing a cape which has been specially designed in Australia's national colours of green and gold, and not a lot else.
Look out for Janelle Elford in the pool. She will be a super contestant in those freestyle events.
Most of the countries have women dressed in that country's national costume marching with the flag bearer, but in Australia's case there is no national costume. Their team uniform is of course in the national colours of green and gold, but they elected instead of a national costume to go with that fashion statement up front from his top designers.
And they're here in the crowd too from across the Tasman. The Aussies, they'll be very strong in all sports. Look out for Glenn Houseman in the pool, the 1500-metre man who lost his world record. Robert Di Costello in the marathon. Martin Binnicum at the cycling. Debbie Flintoff-King on the track. Kerry Saxby, the great Australian walker, is going to try and set a world record for women's walking here. They've got a great team and they're always very strong at the Commonwealth Games. And I'm sure the Right Honourable Mr. Palmer would agree. Very long team. Not the best Australian marching performance we've ever seen. Oh, that's because New Zealand sport, wasn't it?
Bahamas!
6 competitors from the Bahamas. Here's Brad Cooper, their flag bearer, the big discus gold medalist, as the choir here describes the flag of Bahamas. Represented in track and field, swimming and boxing.
And the team is marching to a most appropriate piece of music for the Bahamas. Harry Belafonte's big hit of the 60s. This is My Island in the Sun.
More from the Commonwealth Games from Mount Smart Stadium in a moment.
Bangladesh.
As we look at the men and women of Botswana, meanwhile, there's Tiaroa Clark, one of New Zealand's champion netballers in the 70s and 80s, helping to carry the baton to Mount Smart.